morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to have you along this morning. A lot of stuff to cover today. It's feast or famine. Sometimes there's not all that much to talk about. Yesterday was one of those days. Today, there's just a ton of stuff. So I'm going to touch in this first hour, I'm going to touch on as much of it as I can, and we'll get into it in more details the morning goes on. Here we go. Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Tuesday, April 14th, 15th today. It's tax day, April 15th. Great to have you along. Let's get into it. There is a lot of conversation nationally, and I think misinformation. You had the president of El Salvador, who was in a meeting with the president yesterday. And this is the man that the Justice Department had said they had mistakenly deported him. I don't believe that for a moment. He's from El Salvador, right? He's from El Salvador. He's an El Salvador national. And he had the president of El Salvador saying, how can I return him to the United States? Like if I smuggled him into the United States? He said, of course I'm not going to do it. The question is preposterous. Can we end right there? Maybe I should just say, that's it. Hey, have a great day. Because the question, of course, is preposterous, which is why the legacy media is just absolutely obsessed on this. And it's one of the reasons why the president got into it with CNN's Caitlin Collins in the Oval Office over this man's deportation. And the president saying, repeatedly asking about this, and the president taking shots at CNN. I'm gonna skip over that. You've got the president's deputy chief of staff for policy, who is saying that Abrego Garcia is an El Salvador native. He's a suspected member of MS-13. He was in the United States illegally. And he called it arrogant for the media to expect that the U.S. would tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens. And so the president just is getting hit by the legacy media over this repeatedly. And the president was having none of it. He said, how long do we have to answer this question? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. It's a great question. Why do you go over and over? There's a piece by Matt Vespa at townhall.com this morning. Scott Jennings, who is the lone conservative on CNN, this guy's a hero. I mean, he's rating the Lions Den every day. I think he's a hero. And Matt Vesper writes, again, he had Scott Jennings throwing cold water on the other people on the CNN panel. Again, the man was here illegally. He was deported to his home country. And no, he's not coming back. And Scott Jennings just says to the panel, hey, listen, one of two things is going to happen. If this guy were to be sent back to the United States, if he were to come back, he would be immediately deported again, or to El Salvador, or he would be deported to a country, that for him would be worse than that. And that's really what it boils down to. And the legacy media is just absolutely incredible. Also, we had Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying on Sunday another 10 people have been sent to El Salvador. And he said and he was talking about the alliance between the president of El Salvador and President Trump. And he said their alliance has become an example for security and prosperity in our hemisphere. Marco Rubio is a rock star, in my opinion. He said, he was talking about looking forward to seeing the president of El Salvador. Our nations are working closely together to eradicate terrorist organizations and build a future of prosperity. He is graciously accepted into his nation's custody some of the most violent alien enemies of the world, and in particular the United States. Also, this is a big, and we're going to come back to that story, but it is a huge one this morning. There's just so much news to share with you. The president, also the Trump administration, saying they're freezing more than $2.2 billion in grants and $60 million in contracts to Harvard University. Harvard yesterday thought they said they're not going to comply with the Trump administration's demands. The Trump administration has really put the heat on Harvard to end what we have seen, this political activism occurring on campus. And this was in a letter to Harvard on Friday. And they called on them to end a number of things: merit-based admissions, hiring policies, all of this. And Harvard saying, no, we're just not going to do it. And the Trump administration says, oh, all right, then we're going to freeze more than $2.2 billion in grants, $60 million in contracts to Harvard. And, I just kind of, again, the view from the cheap seats is I just look at that and I say, Harvard is not in a position of strength here. I mean, can we agree on that? They are not in a position of strength. When the federal government is giving that kind of money to Harvard, why? Why is the federal government giving that? I would have to look into it. I mean, that's the first question I have. Why are we giving that kind of money to Harvard? I mean, shouldn't they be able to function on their own? I mean, pretty prestigious, right? I mean, I would think their reputation alone, I don't know what their reputation is these days. They seem to sully it. That's the big story this morning. Let's talk locally for a moment. We had the mayor gave his State of the City address yesterday, talked about a number of different things, talked about homelessness in the city, talked about crime rates, streets, big issue. This city has got a lot of streets. And I don't pay as much attention as I should. I was on my way into work this morning and it's like road closed. Yeah. I need to pay a little. Took me out of my way this morning. It's like, okay, making a mental note here. But he talked about, he talked about the work that's going on at the link, which I think is just absolutely incredible. And he was saying, it's not glamorous work. It's very hard work. When we talk about homelessness, a lot of times addiction is the root cause of that homelessness. He's absolutely right. Absolutely right. He said the link is one of the best investments this community has made to try to get at the root cause of homelessness. He talked about the cost for major street projects in the city, $180 million. He said it's hard to remember a time when the city had so many big road projects happening at one time. Would it be fair to say that maybe the city never has? I mean, maybe under maybe under Mayor Huther, because he had really tackled quite a number of things. But wow, I mean, you get more and more roads and more roads that need to be constructed, and then of course that means also have to be maintained. And he talked about a number of other things as well. He talked about Senate Bill 216, which provides property tax relief, and how the effect that that's going to have then on Sioux Falls. So the reality is that we will be making some changes in the coming months and years that residents will feel. Not going to sugarcoat it, the mayor said. So a lot, and then he, there's also uncertainty in federal funding, changes to mean a little more, going to require, I think, some leaner years ahead. And if the city's wanting to do these things, then I think the city's going to have to find a way to move those forward. So that's a big story this morning. Also, let's talk about the arson suspect, Cody Bulmer, who firebombed Governor Josh Shapiro's mansion in Pennsylvania. This guy is mentally ill. And and just based on his behaviors, and you look at him, and this guy appears to, he's sticking his tongue out at the media yesterday and making weird faces, and it's like, clearly doesn't understand the severity of his situation. And this guy is just, he's sticking his tongue out, and that is, as the media is asking him questions, and it appears the guy is clearly disturbed. So he was out on bail at the time of the firebombing, stuck out his tongue, refused to answer shouted questions by the media. There must have been, 6 to 8 members of the media that were standing as he was being brought then into court. He was arraigned yesterday in connection with that attack, and he identified himself as a former welder who's not currently employed, stated he had no savings or income, said he had no history of substance or alcohol abuse, but said that he had taken medication for mental health in the past, and that the pills led him to different types of behavior. So the judge denied his request for bail, saying his behavior endangered the community. Yeah, you got that right. And he, again, it looks like mental illness is a big issue. Also, this is from Straight Arrow News this morning. New survey by chief executive. 62% of CEOs predict a recession in the next 6 months. 62%. That's a rise from 48% in March. Survey also found that around 75% of CEOs believe the tariffs will negatively impact their businesses in 2025. 2/3 opposed the tariffs. And this was a National Association of Business Economics survey saying that expectations for the economy will grow only 0.7% this year. So you got a growing number of CEOs who are concerned about what will happen. There was a piece this morning by Rich Lowry at the New York Post. Rich Lowry, who I read often and I respect. He says, judging I'm just going to share the headline, I think, at this point. The president will destroy a world economy that has us at the apex and only getting stronger. So, what the president is doing, he is saying, again, keep in mind, this is, you have a lot of people from who have a business or, perspective. Lowry is one of those people. And he's saying, the country has thrived in recent years. If we've gotten ripped off, as President Donald Trump says, the supposed thieves have gained little and the purported victim has continued to march ahead the United States, he's saying. And he said that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to change unfair trade practices and to gain more independence from Chinese supply chains. But he said it's foolish to disrupt willy-nilly a system that has us at the apex and getting stronger rather than getting weaker. Also, there was a story this morning that China has stopped exporting several rare earth minerals that are pretty crucial to making products in the tech, automobile, aerospace, and defense industries. New York Post reported on this, that China no longer exporting 7 heavy rare earth metals that are processed exclusively in China, as well as heavy rare earth magnets. And so China is saying that the stoppage of rare earth minerals applies to all countries, not just the United States. Also, it's been a big story this week, and rightfully, as it should, the Blue Origin flight. And this was the all-female flight, that Blue Origin, all women on board. I thought it was pretty cool. You watched during the 4th hour yesterday, my podcast, and I showed the spacecraft taking off, and it's all females on board, and Katy Perry was there. You had others as well, and really bringing a lot of attention. And so New York Post has a bit of clap back that people criticize them for participating in the flight. And I kind of agree. I mean, they want to participate in the flight. It's a private endeavor, and folks who want to do it. I thought it was cool. I think it takes a lot of courage. I really do. You want to get on board one of those, and I mean, it takes a certain amount of courage to be able to do that, I think. So that has been a big story, and there are a number of things related to that. You see Jeff Bezos. Again, Lauren Sanchez was one of those who went up, who is the fiance of Jeff Bezos. And after they had landed, he's going around the capsule and he trips and falls into a hole. I got to tell you why that makes me laugh, because that's me. That's me, man. I'm like, yeah, if I were on national television, yeah, that's the kind of moment that I would have. Big, huge hole. How did he not see it? He's looking into the windows of the spacecraft. He's not watching where he's going. So he trips. A lot of people then mocking him for that. In fact, I just see that on Fox News Channel, even as we speak. Then you have fast food chain Wendy's taking aim at Katy Perry. They're on social media. Wendy said, "Can we send her back?" They had a number of, they said, the return her to space. And then they tweeted, "I kissed the ground and I liked it." Her song, "I kissed a girl and I liked it. I kissed the ground and I liked it." And they didn't stop there, went on. And then you've got the first black woman to go into space. This was coverage now on CBS. You have coverage on CBS, and this is Mae Jemison, and one of the anchors that was there used the term mankind, and she corrects them. It's humankind, refusing to say mankind, humankind. And I'm like, seriously, you're going to go there? I mean, now you're taking the focus off of these women in the flight, and I think they deserve credit. Some of you may not, but I think that requires a lot of courage. So you're going to take the focus off the women in the flight so we can debate again whether or not you can use the word mankind. That is, I think that is selfish as all hell when people do that. Because what they're doing now is they're turning the focus on them. They're trying to make it all about them. And it shouldn't be at a moment like that. It should be on the women who showed, I think, a lot of courage in what they did. Also, the Associated Press accusing the White House of violating a court order. The Associated Press once again banned from an Oval Office event, which I just absolutely love. And that's a look at the big stories this morning. Thanks for starting your day with us. 627, fair skies, 31. And this hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Weeknights 5 to 8. Kello.
CBS.
107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires. The Give You More Tire and Automotive Store.
Bring charm from the outdoors into your home.
Okay, I've been thinking about the beautiful print that we received. I think I am going to move it down to my office. I think I can put it on display in the office. It won't be quite as prominent, but I also won't be blocking it. I think I know right where to put it. So next week, watch for it during the 4th hour. I'll move it when I have some time. Things are kind of crazy this week. We're still searching for a call screener. Kind of taking a break, close. We had somebody ready to go, and it just unfortunately did not work out. I thought he would have been great. So just didn't work out. So we're kind of back to the drawing board again. And I just okay, I got to take a breath here and figure out how we're going to do this. And Chat GPT is giving me some ideas, some pretty good ideas for on-air commercials to catch attention. So you know anybody who might be interested, have them drop me an email. Whether it's a long-term outage, a short-term, and we're looking for somebody part-time available during the show. I've had people ask me, I would love to do it. Do I get, how early do I have to be in? Yeah, kind of early. Not as early as me, but generally, I mean, I can operate during the 6 a.m. hour without a call screener. 7 a.m. is what I'm thinking, 7 to 11, part-time, maximum 25 hours a week. So if you know anybody, please.
Scattered shower and thunderstorm activity possible on Thursday with a high at 72, near 60 Friday. From the Storm Center.
And currently in Sioux Falls, clear and 31 at Kello.
judge in Maryland is expected to press the Justice Department on the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the president of El Salvador, saying he would not return the man to the U.S. in an Oval Office meeting with
I think he
President
made
Trump
it pretty
yesterday.
clear. Not returning the guy.
While the U.S. government says it doesn't have the power either.
In its latest filing, the government suggests it might not be able to bring.
Guy's a citizen of El Salvador, man.
Homeland Security saying it does not have the authority to forcibly extract an alien from the domestic custody of a foreign sovereign nation.
That's Fox's Madeline Rivera. Jury selection gets underway today in Harvey Weinstein's retrial. He was convicted of rape and sentenced to 23 years 5 years ago, but it was overturned by New York's Court of Appeals due to prejudicial testimony and improper rulings. America is listening to Fox News.
Weather brought to you by Infinity Sedation Dentistry, Sioux Falls. They fix your teeth while you sleep.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. A Nobles County Sheriff's deputy is in critical condition after a crash in southwest Minnesota. Authorities say on Sunday, around 4:30 in the afternoon, Deputy Arnold Waldner was sitting in his parked squad car when it was struck by an SUV on westbound Interstate 90. Waldner suffered life-threatening injuries. The driver of the SUV was also hospitalized, but is in.
What do you think of Stephen A. Smith?
Investigation.
Did you vote for
If
Stephen
you
A.
build it,
Smith?
They will come. In his State of the City address yesterday, Sioux Falls Mayor Paulton Haken said continuing building development is critical. He says every revenue dollar counts, especially now with a tighter city budget this year.
We lost almost 140 events in 1 year, totaling thousands of people who would have supported our small businesses, retailers, and restaurants. Because we have a convention center that was built in 1996 when we were 115,000 people.
Haken also pointed to a 5-year low in crime and touted the investments in public safety and infrastructure. Hibachi Grill and Supreme Buffet on 41st Street in Sioux Falls remains shut down with a sign on the door citing limited staffing. But behind the closure is a federal case. A former owner, a former manager, and a third person are facing federal charges accused of employing and harboring undocumented workers over nearly a decade. All three were released yesterday on personal recognizance bonds while they await trial. The Keystone Oil Pipeline is running again. Last week, the pipeline was shut down due to a rupture in North Dakota. Nearly 150,000 gallons of oil were spilled in the incident. The Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration says the section of the pipeline that failed has been replaced and is being sent for testing. And today is tax day. If you haven't filed your federal income tax return
You
yet,
filed yet?
out. Returns must be e-filed by midnight tonight or postmarked by
I got to
today.
believe that most of you have.
Time. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe.
Katie
Bowman.
filed for us as soon as we could file.
News Talk 1320,
She's like,
107.9.
get your stuff, let's go.
Mostly sunny skies
Okay.
and less wind today. Our high temperature nearing 60 degrees and that northwest breeze at about 15 to 25. For tonight, we're looking at partly cloudy conditions, a low at 36. Tomorrow, warmer weather with a high at 73. Southeast winds at 15 to 30. Thunderstorm chances Thursday. From the Storm Center at Kibbeland TV, I'm Brian Karstens.
Where you learn to listen and listen to learn. Kello News Talk 1320, 107.9.
Personally, I would never buy a car online. I need to see and drive the actual vehicle first. And then there's the dealership. How's their reputation? But that's just me. These days, thousands buy used cars online and unseen. Carvana, Auto Trader, and a few others appeal to Gen Zers and millennials, and they've made buying a car online routine. But they've also opened the door to big-time scammers. I'm Kim Commando for DraftKings Pick 6. Stay tuned to hear all that.
Robert, you're dreaming.
DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Full time and paid what you
Carvana and
paid.
others I mentioned are not scams.
It's not for everybody.
Scammers are
What I'm looking for is somebody who's retired.
online used car companies.
Seriously, I would like to find somebody who's retired, who's a listener of the show, and would still like a little bit of income.
There's just one problem.
And if you without being chained to the place, you come in, you work a few hours a day. You got every major holiday off. I don't work holidays, so every major holiday off. I'm also taking liberal vacation, so because I get about 5 weeks a year that I'm gone. So whenever I'm gone, that person is gone. So what I'm hoping is somebody who is,
Download the
Retired.
DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code KEMP. That's code
That
KEMP
would be
for
my
new
hope.
customers.
Maybe
To play
it's
$40, get
maybe it's pipe
$50 in
dream.
Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins. Only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, with 2 locations to make sure you have the proper traction this winter.
It's time to stop making excuses. The peace of mind you get after a colonoscopy is worth it. It's the best way to prevent and detect one of the deadliest cancers. In fact, your doctor can remove precancerous polyps during the procedure if necessary. That's right, before it even turns to cancer. No buts about it. Get a colonoscopy at 45 and follow up every 10 years or as recommended by your doctor. Find a location or schedule now at avera.org/colon.
Hey, are you feeling the impact of the recent changes in the timeshare industry? Well, my friends at Lone Star Transfer, they are the only company I trust to help you. Now, they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and they have thousands of 5-star reviews. Now, their customer service is their top priority. Now, for a free consultation and a guaranteed solution, call now at 833-594-0075. That's 833-594-0075. On the web, it's LoneStarTransfer1word.com.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
Slow it down. Get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression. Izervay or avacincaptad pegol is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye.
One of the reasons I'm looking for somebody retired is a lot of our listeners tend to be older. I really would like to find somebody who listens to the show and they understand the show, because when they don't, that's when things go sideways. So I really would like to bring somebody in, either that or somebody who's got an incredibly thick skin, who disagrees and understands, doesn't take everything personally. Maybe that's a pretty tall order. I don't know. So we'll see. But Chat GPT has helped me come up, or I should say, Chat GPT came up with some really great ideas for commercials. A few of them really struck my funny bone. So I'll be working on those here over the course of the next week, and we'll get some announcements back on the air. But if you know anybody along those lines, please have them drop me an email.
Since 1941, ordinary American citizens have been serving their communities nationwide as a member of the Civil Air Patrol, the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force. Answering the call to volunteer nationwide with 1,500 squadrons across 52 wings, and our pilots fly more than 112,000 hours annually. And you can answer the call to volunteer. Become an everyday hero every day as a member of the Civil Air Patrol. Find a unit near you at gocivilairpatrol.com.
Working hard at the gym, but want to know what's going on in Sioux Falls? Staying up to date with Kello is no sweat with a free Kello app on your smartphone. For the information you need, your radio is only the beginning. Stimulating talk and news when it happens. Kello.
20 minutes before 7, clear skies, 31. Thanks so much for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. Great to have you along this hour, brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belf's News.
These are the stories trending this morning at freespoke.com. El Salvador's president claiming he cannot return Abrego Garcia to the United States. He was deported last month, and a U.S. federal judge has issued an order that he be returned home. He is home. That he be returned to the United States. But he's from El Salvador, right? He is from El Salvador, in the country illegally. So as we returning him home, I think that's what the Trump administration did. And you had the president of El Salvador calling the idea that his country could return this guy preposterous, he said. And we'll talk more about that coming up this morning. Also, the Trump administration has, this is the Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism. They said they're freezing over $2 billion in multi-year grants and contracts to Harvard after the school's president released a statement saying, now the school would not comply with the administration's demands regarding anti-Semitism. And so the task force then said, the statement reinforces the troubling entitlement mindset that is endemic in our nation's most prestigious universities and colleges, that federal investment does not come with the responsibility to uphold civil rights laws. This is what they're saying. The disruption of learning that has plagued campuses in recent years is unacceptable. The harassment of Jewish students is intolerable. This is the Trump administration. And they said it is time, because, it's the Trump administration, evil, bad, terrible, all of these different things. And you listen to the Trump administration and what they're actually saying. They're out there fighting on behalf of Jewish students and the hatred that they're seeing. And they said it's time for elite universities to take the problem seriously and commit to meaningful change if they wish to continue receiving taxpayer support. It's really as simple as that. Also, the president of Mexico is responding. The president has threatened to impose sanctions on Mexico if Mexico does not comply with the 1944 treaty that says the United States must receive 1.75 million acre feet of water from the Rio Grande every 5 years. So in other words, Mexico currently owes the United States billions of gallons of water under this treaty. And so the president is saying you're not in compliance with the treaty. And so, unless you do, we're going to impose additional sanctions here on Mexico. So there are 6 months to go. They still owe about 2/3 of the total, the president said. And so he raised the possibility of sanctions until Mexico honors the treaty. Less than 24 hours later, Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, said her country doesn't have enough water, but will make the payments immediately. She addressed farmers in Texas by saying, And this is where, Mexico delivering this water very much needed in Texas. And so she said to farmers in Texas, there will be an immediate delivery of a number of millions of cubic meters of water to the region, depending on how much water the Rio Grande has. And she said she hopes the rainy season brings us more water so we can deliver more to the U.S., but that they would start immediately after what does it have to come to threats? I mean, that's a question I have. Why do we have to threaten all of these countries in order that they treat in the case of Mexico, why should they have to be threatened when under treaties that they have signed, they have pledged to do this? It's the same thing with everything else that we're talking about. Why does it have to boil down to threats? Because left to their own devices, they're going to screw the United States. I mean, we see it over and over again. At least that's my takeaway. Also, Maryland and jury yesterday found an illegal immigrant guilty of murdering Rachel Marin back in 2023. She's a 37-year-old mother of 5 and was jogging when this illegal immigrant ambushed, strangled, beat her to death, authorities say. So prosecutors rested the case on Friday. On Monday, the defense rested its case after less than 10 minutes before closing arguments were made. And following the guilty verdict, the sheriff said the failure here again is the immigration system that allowed this person to enter our country illegally and remain in our country and commit crimes in Los Angeles and then here in Harford County, he said. Yet another, Mike McCarthy, who's a special agent in Homeland Security, he said it raises questions that deserve to be taken seriously about how we protect our neighborhoods, about how we enforce our laws, and how we prevent such tragedy in the future. Also, Attorney General Pam Bondi said yesterday an arrest has been made in connection to a firebombing of a New Mexico Tesla dealership, as well as an attack on the New Mexico Republican Party headquarters. So she said in the announcement, we'll be prosecuting. We've made an arrest. We will be prosecuting to the fullest extent of the law. We are seeking up to 40 years in prison, no negotiating. Outstanding work by the FBI, ATF. She said, let this be the final lesson to those taking part in this ongoing wave of political violence. We will arrest you, we will prosecute you, and we will not negotiate. Crimes have consequences. Also, family members of the Menendez brothers are blaming prosecutors. This is after their elderly aunt had collapsed. They're blaming, she collapsed in her hotel. Okay, she was found unconscious in her hotel, and they're trying to say because the district attorney's office showed these graphic pictures and photos, that's the reason for the collapse. Now, she did not collapse in court. She collapsed in her hotel room. So we'll have to wait and see. The question remains as to what actually happened there. Also, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds has been in the news, and she announced this week that this term as governor will be her last. She will not run for a third term as governor of Iowa. And she says she's still processing this. She said, I'm still very emotional about it because I love it, she said, of the job. This was over the weekend. So she was taking questions from reporters and so on. The Easter egg hunt was going on. It was the governor's egg hunt on the Hill. And she said, I love what I'm doing, and I love this state, and I love Iowans. And she said, being governor of Iowa, the honor of a lifetime. As one can imagine, as I feel for her, that would be tough. It's hard not to internalize when you see people who love what they're doing and they're stepping away from it after a period of time. Again, a couple of terms. So she'd been Iowa's governor, going to likely, maybe the highlight of her career. I can understand why folks would be very melancholy and have a difficult time stepping away, and why it would be emotional, because I would feel that way stepping away from this. Because I love what I do. And I hope that comes across, my friend. All right. Also, NVIDIA has revealed plans to manufacture some AI chips in the United States. So they said that they have commissioned over 1 million square feet of manufacturing space in Arizona and Texas. They announced this on Monday in a blog post. And they will test their Blackwell chips in Phoenix. They're building supercomputer plants in Houston and Dallas. NVIDIA said it would take at least a year to reach mass production scale at both plants. At the same time, NVIDIA said its Blackwell chips have already started production at Phoenix chip plants. These are run by Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. So NVIDIA moving forward with more plans to build their chips in the United States. This story is trending this morning via FreeSpoke, or honestly, Saturday Night Live has not been relevant to me for a good number of years. And now you've got SNL comparing, as we enter Holy Week, you've got Saturday Night Live comparing Donald Trump to Jesus in an Easter sketch. And I really, there all kinds of just offensive. I find it to be offensive. You want to find more details that are out there? Let's move on. You had Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan hiding her face at the Oval Office. She was meeting with Donald Trump. The New York Times published a photo of her in the Oval Office hiding her face behind a folder. And holding it right up in front of her face, man. If you saw the 4th hour yesterday, I shared that photo, and people are reacting to that, and it's like one person online said, it's like a 2-year-old. This is what a 2-year-old does. You can't see me. You can't see me. Just craziness, man. Stephen A. Smith is considering, he announced this on Sunday, considering a 2028 run at the White House based on the poor showing of Democrats as well as Republicans, he said. So he was on ABC's This Week, considering a bid at the presidency based on fielding calls from billionaires, elected officials, pundits, and most notably his pastor. And Smith said, I couldn't be happier with life right now, but people have walked up to me, including my own pastor, for crying out loud, who has said to me, you don't know what God has planned for you. At least show the respect to the people who believe in you, who respect you, who believe that you can make a difference in this country, to leave the door open for any possibilities 2 to 3 years down the line. So now he is considering a run for president. We'll see how it's, I just think it's publicity stunt. Also, Meta platforms facing an antitrust trial started yesterday, could force them to break off Instagram and WhatsApp. And so this will be the first big test of the Federal Trade Commission's ability to challenge big tech. And you've got some conservatives who are saying, questioning, why is the Trump administration doing this? This would be something the Biden administration would be more likely to pursue. Why are we seeing it? That's what some are saying. Also, you have the Blue Origin female crew having a historic trip that lasted about 8 minutes yesterday. This was Blue Origin's first all-female flight crew who went to space, again, about 8 minutes, and everything went well. Katy Perry, Gayle King, Lauren Sanchez, others who were on board. And it was pretty incredible, I thought, to watch yesterday. And that's a look at the stories that are trending this morning. Let's take a break here. Beautiful morning. Fair skies, 31. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month. All right, my friend, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you again tomorrow. Hope to see you for the 4th hour coming up this morning at 9:30. So long until then.
We create rest and relaxation, happiness, and